A quick note from me, your host, about something close to my heart. I want to thank Creative Space for supporting this episode. Creative Space is a co-working community that's been invaluable to me. It's a space where solo professionals and change makers gather. People focus on projects that support people and planet, aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals and the Inner Development Goals. This community perfectly matches Stories for the Future's values through its focus on collaboration, diversity, and meaningful support. If you're self-employed or moving towards solopreneurship, visit getcreativespace.com to join our supportive international community. Welcome back to Stories for the Future. I'm so glad you're here, whether you've been listening for a while or this is your very first episode. What happens when climate change itself becomes a censored word? In this episode, I sit down with Tom Schueneman, a journalist, blogger, podcaster, and longtime climate communicator behind globalwarmingisreal.com. Tom has spent more than 20 years writing and speaking about the climate crisis, and he brings a unique perspective on how science denial, politics, and propaganda shape the conversation today. A quick note before I continue. This conversation was recorded in May, and since then, now August, a lot has happened, not the least in US politics. But the themes that we discuss, like climate denial, disinformation, and how to keep communicating hope, are still highly relevant. So just keep that in mind that it's been a few months since we did the recording. We talk about everything from climate data being removed from government databases to how we can still reach beyond the climate choir and stay grounded when the headlines feel overwhelming. If you ever wondered what it takes to keep telling the truth in turbulent times, this episode is definitely for you. So let's get into it. Tom, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited about this conversation. And as I said, I have so much to ask you and talk about.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I think I just want to dive into something which I feel is urgent and highly relevant.
Okay.
Because we talked about earlier, you mentioned that, for instance, the word climate is getting censored in research in the US these days.
Yes.
So this is something I'm watching from a distance from Norway, but I'm really curious how did this happen, and also how do you, as a communicator, navigate this? How do you do this?
Well, yeah, it's all happening so fast here in the United States, and it's just the administration's refusal to acknowledge climate change, and so that is manifesting itself in, like you mentioned, the word climate being removed from the databases, and actually data sets are being hidden. I don't know. Hopefully they're not being destroyed. So it is right at this moment, people are doing their best to preserve data sets and to educate the public as to actually what's going on. I don't think people realize the gravity of it. It's in their effort to eliminating the word climate change, of course, doesn't change climate change any. It's kind of bizarre, but it's going to manifest itself, I think, here in the United States and probably globally when they're defunding the NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They're defunding the whole anything to do with climate, which has to do with weather forecasting. So what I'm getting at here is weather forecasting, extreme weather is being defunded. So as a researcher, as a communicator, interestingly enough, just to back up for a second, 2-3 weeks ago, I was in Phoenix, Arizona for the Society of Environmental Journalists conference. And that, of course, was on everybody's mind. Interestingly, I was at the last conference 2 years ago in Boise, Idaho, when we were in the Biden administration, and there was money flowing for clean energy and NOAA, and everybody was trying to figure, what do we do with all this money? And now that's completely changed.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of, I think unfortunately what's going to happen, I think, is that something bad is going to happen, unfortunately, like some sort of extreme weather where the weather forecasting wasn't timely enough, and people lose their properties, or God forbid, lose their life, and that will wake people up. There's talk about, we just can privatize the weather forecasting, for instance. And the reality of that is all these apps and things, that they're getting their data from the government, the satellites, it all comes from the government. So right now, there's not really an answer as to how we're going to counteract this. I think people are just realizing the extent that the Trump administration is taking this. Though, on a bright note, just before we got on here, I didn't have a chance to read the full article, but it was from the USDA, the United States Dairy Association. I guess they had taken some climate change pages down off their website. Somebody sued, and they're going to put the pages back up.
Oh.
So now that we're talking about this, I think the resistance is starting to kick in a bit, and I don't think that's going to counteract all this defunding, all the scientists that are, spent their careers in public service trying to advance the science of climate, weather forecasting, or any number of scientific pursuits. It's like you're gone, you're done, and so it's really destabilizing right now. Unfortunately, I think it's probably going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. But frankly, I don't know how, we're 100 and some odd days in to Mr. Trump's second administration. And look what he's done in the past 3 months. I don't know how much he can keep this up. And I think that the resistance is starting to kick in, not necessarily climate right now, because there are so many other things. People are being renditioned off the street and sent to El Salvador, and Trump wants to take a $450 million jet from Qatar, and all these crazy things. So one of my concerns is that climate might be getting pushed down a little bit because there's so many other things in people's face. But on the other hand, climate change is not a political actor, and I do believe that we've seen in the past few years what's been happening, the heat, the extreme weather, in the U.S., all over the place, all over the globe. But in the U.S., the extreme weather every year seems to be getting worse. And interestingly, like I say, climate's not a political actor, but it's funny here in the United States, because a lot of the red states are in hurricane zones and tornado zones, and there are certain Congress people, won't name any names, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, they're still going after this idea that the left, the lunatic left, or however we're characterized, is juicing the weather to hit the red states. There was actually, I guess now there's an actual law in Florida against geoengineering.
Right.
Kind of in that same vein that you can't make hurricanes worse. Geoengineering is an interesting topic. I'm not necessarily for geoengineering, though. I think the past couple hundred years has been one huge geoengineering experiment. I think if we get to the point where the only way we can mitigate climate change, and actually we might be getting to that point, is some sort of global scale geoengineering, like reflecting sunlight, that's a failure. We've completely failed if we've got to that point. So, I kind of, at some point, agree with Florida in their pushing back against geoengineering. The problem is the reason they're doing that is it's a political ploy. It doesn't really have anything to do with mitigating climate change, because they're a red state, so they don't believe, which is another odd thing, just not believing in climate change. It's not like a religion.
Yeah.
Though people claim that if you're concerned about climate change, it's some sort of a religion. So there's all this strange narrative going on that's been going on in the U.S. I'm not quite sure what it's like. I've asked people that aren't in the U.S. about climate denial, and it just seems to me that it's a little bit worse than the U.S. Though I'm not sure. I mean, what's it like?
I think actually I read, I find it hard to believe, but I read somewhere that Norway is really high up, actually.
Oh, is it really? I'm
yeah.
surprised.
I can't remember the percentage, but it's surprisingly high. It might have something to do with our big fortune in oil and gas. So, but it's it's really strange. Okay, so I can add something here. After looking it up, I can tell you that 1 out of 4 Norwegians are climate skeptics. That means that they don't think that climate change is human-made. So this is a EU-led study from 2022, and data from 25 shows approximately the same, and this has been a constant since about 2013. Quite shocking, you might say. 1 out of 4 Norwegians, that is 1.4 million people in Norway, don't believe that climate change is man-made. But I was going to ask you exactly this, and I think it's so interesting because what you said there about the red states, and those are often the states that are most climate vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
Hurricanes, and it's kind of sticking your head in the sand. And then I was going to ask, how can this be? But then you say that they actually... There's a reason for that as well, because then it's geoengineering, or it's somebody messing with the weather. And you said maybe something really bad will happen so that people will wake up. But I wonder
how long will it take?
yes,
Yeah.
I wonder what it takes, because you saw the big fires in California,
Right.
and still people find an excuse for why this is happening, and you always find something.
Yeah, it's odd. They would some people would rather think that it's geoengineering, other than it's the climate changing. It's the all the science that we've had for more than a century. The Arrhenius, I can't remember the scientist's name, at the turn of the 20th century, took a pencil and some paper and calculated the climate forcing of. They were getting concerned with coal at the time, because coal was really starting to fuel the economy. And they were concerned. There was concern in the early 1900s, late 1800s. What's unfortunately happened is that climate change kind of took hold in the public consciousness, just as the forces of propaganda and marketing, the big tobacco playbook, took hold, and when tobacco kind of couldn't maintain their story anymore that it's healthy, all that machinery, that propaganda machinery, and knowledge, and even some of the same scientists just transferred it over to climate change. So just as it became an issue where people were in the 80s, it seemed like maybe there was going to be some bipartisan effort, 80s and 90s. It just became, the science was uncertain, and it's not as bad as people are saying. It's alarmism, all the same ideas that were employed with cigarettes and tobacco were employed to climate change. And unfortunately, it's just muddied the waters so much that anything that happens, it's anything but climate change. It can't be climate change because that just becomes a political football. The fires in L.A. here, it was California, so it was a liberal state. So it was the liberals' fault that all these, and it's difficult to work past that. I've on my blog globalwarmingisreal.com. I joked around that I had a pet troll. Larry was his name, and he would come in at least once a week, and we started. Typically, I don't engage with the trolls, but this guy, I had posted an article. It was relatively innocuous on my Facebook page, and he came back with something that's all a hoax, blah blah blah. And I said, well, you should have read the article, because he obviously didn't read the article. And so we kind of went back and forth for a little while, for maybe about a year. But he kept saying the same thing, that it was all weather variation. And he kept saying that. I said, well, yeah, okay, sure. The weather is there's weather and there's climate, but he wouldn't listen to me. And I finally said, look, dude, you keep saying the same thing, so goodbye. And I blocked him. And I don't want to, block people necessarily, but I think my point here is that they just have an idea in their mind, and they're going to stick with that idea. And at what point will they start to think about it? I don't know. I think, maybe as bad as it is and probably will get under Trump, perhaps there will be some sort of what Dana Fisher, a sociologist, Dana Fisher, who wrote a book called Saving Ourselves, and good book, I recommend it, that we get to a point where there's what she terms as an anthro shift. There's a critical tipping point that will convince people that that will create the social change that is necessary for dealing with climate change. Because we know it's happening. We have technology that can mitigate it, though I am also like to stress that I don't think it's a technological answer necessarily. It's more of a social and psychological answer, and that's the sticking point I think we're at right now. I think if we really wanted to, we could start to do. The energy transition. It's not going to be easy, and there will be some pain. There's going to be pain either way, and we start this energy transition in a thoughtful way. We know how to deal with. Unfortunately, clean energy takes resources as well. There's extraction involved with clean energy. You have to get the rare earth minerals and things like that. But if we do it in a thoughtful, engaged way, and just get into it, start doing it, instead of this, Biden gives a bunch of money for clean energy, Trump comes in, pulls it all back. It's up and it's down. We're in Paris, we're out of Paris. If we really wanted to focus and do something about climate change, we can, and we're going to have to eventually. And unfortunately, we've waited kind of long enough now that it's not going to be easy. There is going to be pain, but it's going to be much worse if we just kind of, I think, stay as on the road that we're on right now.
Yes, I agree. So I'm thinking about you're a great communicator. You have your podcast, you're writing, you have your blog, you have all these different outlets. And have you ever, so there's a number of questions here. Have you ever experienced that you have actually changed someone's mind?
That's a good question.
And how?
I think it changed somebody's mind. I can't say I can think of anybody where, like my pet troll, where he's go, oh, you know what? You're right. That hasn't happened.
No.
I think the best I could lay claim to is people that don't think about it that much.
Awareness.
The awareness. I think I've
Yes.
raised awareness about it. I think that's important. The people like Larry, there's no hope.
No.
It's a waste of my effort to try to convince people that just don't want to be convinced.
Yeah.
I think that what we can do as communicators is keep the issue in people's minds, let them know that there is a solution. And I'm one that can sometimes find myself falling into some sense of doomerism, like we're all going to die. That doesn't help either. There are solutions, and it's not alarmism. It's just facing the facts. One phrase I like to use is hope. Hope is when we stop fooling ourselves. If we just think that we can just keep on business as usual and hope for the best, that's not hope. That's our head in the sand is what that is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think raising awareness.
Yeah.
And in this period of what we're going through right now with Donald Trump, is pushing back and letting people know the risk that it's not just climate change. The administration is anti-science.
Yes.
So letting people know how dangerous that is. There's climate change, there's AI, there's all these different things that are impacting society. It's moving so fast, and then you have this guy that just doesn't. He's incurious. He doesn't know anything, and he thinks he knows a lot. And what is that, Dunning-Kruger?
Yes. Yeah. The more you know, the more
Yeah.
you know you don't know.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah.
So,
But what I'm very I wonder about, and I think we touched on this last time we spoke, that how is it, because maybe not Mr. T, but other people in his gang that are apparently very intelligent people, doing really stupid things.
Yeah.
And I can't figure this out. How is not intelligence protecting us from this, like, being so irrational? Do you think?
Yeah, that's another good question. Let's talk about Elon Musk first, because he's smart. He's a smart guy. Though I don't know what's happened to him. The intelligence is not a cure for narcissism, for huge egos, for greed. I think a lot of this is the billionaires protecting their billions. That's what's Elon Musk specifically. I think he came in with his Doge, his Department of, and completely eviscerated so many departments in the government. I follow a subreddit, federal workers subreddit, and it's heartbreaking to see what he's doing.
Yeah.
And he's prides himself as being this innovator. We can question that some. These intelligent people, I think it's short-termism. I think they have billions. Mark Zuckerberg, for instance, he has some sort of I don't know what a bunker in Hawaii. So when the apocalypse comes, they'll go in their bunker. It is odd. I think it's instructive for us normal folk to realize that even intelligent people can get sucked into this. What's frankly, it's a cult, the cult of personality of Donald Trump. So I think that's a big part of it, and it's some people might not like us referring to the 30s and 40s in Germany, but there are parallels.
Yes.
There were smart people back then that followed along with what happened, and hopefully it won't get that bad, but I don't know. It's disturbing. The thing is, with Trump, he has surrounded himself this time. It wasn't so much in the first administration. He learned his lesson because there were smart people that pushed back. And now he has people that ostensibly are smart. They went to, Harvard and things like that. Another one is like, I'm thinking right now of Hegseth. I think it was Harvard or Princeton, one of the, and he's a fool. I mean, he's just so. What Trump wants is complete and utter loyalty. So everything else be damned. And Trump is anti-science because science, you talk about climate, you talk about things that he doesn't want to know about. And science is apparently woke. There's all these phrases that get thrown around that just muddy any sort of substantive conversation about how we deal with issues like climate change. And there's other things. Climate change is just a symptom of a much larger economic inequality and our energy economy and all these things that we have to address. The pollution in the environment, anything from plastic to noise. I'm reading a book right now about noise. Sound, being a sound engineer, I'm into that. And these are issues that we're going to have to address in the coming decades. I see little kids right now that will be around in the turn of the next century, and I my heart goes out to them because in a way, I'd be curious to see, what it was going to be like in 80 years. And then the other part is that, you don't want to be there.
No,
and I don't want to be a pessimist. Maybe in 80 years, we'll have, in that time, we'll have figured it out and we're coming out the other end. That's possible. That's still possible. But we've been saying that, there's still time to do something about climate, for instance, ever since I've been writing about climate for a little over 20 years now. And now it's 20 years later. Now we're looking at COP30 coming up. Climate, COP30. I was at COP15 and COP21. And in COP21, I thought, okay, that's where the Paris Agreement was signed. And I was thinking, okay, the world came together. That was really a high point. Because it really was, was aspirational, of course, but at least all the countries of the world, I think maybe at the time there was one or two, North Korea or some countries that didn't sign on to the agreement, but ostensibly the whole world came together to at least sign a document saying we're going to do something about climate change. And now, 10 years later, United States is out of it. I don't think there's one country that's actually doing what they say they're going to do. Their INDCs, their commitments. So it's a matter of political will right now.
This episode is supported by Creative Space, a co-working community for solopreneurs creating a positive impact. I'm a proud member myself, and I highly recommend checking it out. Learn more at getcreativespace.com. Yes, it is. I was there's a book that you told me about that I keep coming back to and thinking about, and I have to read it. I haven't read it yet, but I came to think of it when you talked about 8 years in the future, and it's this book called The Fourth
The
Turning.
Fourth Turning, yes.
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 Could you just say a little bit about it? Because I think it's when you also mentioned like the similarities to the 30s and the 40s.
Right.
I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah. So the fourth turning is a theory of historical cycles that history goes in cycles of essentially a long human lifetime, 80 to 100 years. So you go through an awakening. About every generation is a different era, if you would. The 30s and 40s was a crisis era. That was about, 80 years ago? And so we're coming into the fourth turning, which is the crisis turning. And so we're entering a fourth turning where, what happened in the 30s and 40s was a horrific world war. Out of that came a whole new world order. And so the theory is that we're in that process now. We're in getting into the crisis, and maybe in the next 10 years or so, there will be an enormous social change. It's an excellent book. Frankly, I haven't. It's deep. And
I can imagine.
But it's an interesting, what he calls is the seculum, SEACULUM, I believe it's spelled. Right. And a seculum is that 80-year period of historical cycles. My generation, I'm a boomer, born in 1958. So I am what he terms the prophet generation. I was the generation born out of the crisis. A little bit narcissistic we are, us boomers, and now we're getting to be elderly. Well, boy, I hate that word, but older, a little bit older, mature.
Senior.
So was the hero generation will be the ones that have to fight the war, as it were.
Right. So we're now in the fourth.
We're into the fourth turning.
Right.
Yes. The crisis, in other words.
Yes.
And,
I heard this. Yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say, and it seems appropriate given.
Yeah, it does. I heard this. I'm not sure if it's a famous quote or if it's just somebody saying it, but history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. I thought that was a good one because, we can look at history and learn from it and try not to repeat it.
Yeah, that's a good quote. That kind of speaks to the fourth turning, the whole idea of that. I think that was Mark. If I'm not mistaken, I think that might have been Mark Twain.
Yes, I think so. I think you're right. Yes.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, it's a good one. I'm thinking about that and trying to let's learn something from it. but I think I told you that I see, especially with this podcast now, I see it as a kind of a mission to paint a more nuanced picture of many different groups of people. So that could be like coming from my old industry, oil and gas, and going into another bubble, so to speak. But it could also be like cultural. Now people having this very one-sided image of the US, for instance, or even my own country. I don't know how people in the entire world look at Norway, and that, like with our oil and gas fortune and everything, what is the global perception of us? So how do you think that we as communicators, and especially you thinking about this, I guess now, playing a role to avoid this stereotyping so that the whole world puts everybody coming from the US in one box and kind of,
Yeah. I think talking to people outside your bubble or just outside your not even bubble, outside your area of, like being in the U.S., I don't know when it started. There's this idea that to fly, you have to show ID, and in the U.S. now you have to have what they call either a passport or what they call a real ID with your driver's license. I didn't do it. I have a passport. But my point here is that I think Americans should all get a passport and travel, get outside the country and see what it's like. I think that's one way to learn how people are just people. They're especially, I don't know what it's like. I think it's maybe a little bit of this is happening globally, but it's certainly in the United States where if you don't think the way I do, you are a bad person. So talking to people that maybe, for instance, for me, talk to somebody who voted for Donald Trump, and instead of saying, well, how could you be so stupid, just say, what just talk to them about it. What prompted your decision? I think that's a really important thing, because I think people are first off, they're stuck on their screens, in their algorithms, and so the algorithm is controlling. We talk about free speech, but how free is it when the algorithm is guiding what we see and how we feel? For me, for instance, I'm helping a young man in Nigeria. He's very. It's inspiring to talk to him, because when we talk, we have Zoom calls. He's studying to be an environmental. I think he wants to be an academic, but he's doing some writing for me, and we talk. And when I see where he is in Nigeria, when I think, oh my God, I'm suffering here in the United States, I see how somebody is just seeing them on the screen, their environment, and I go, I'm fortunate.
Yeah.
SOB. So, getting outside your world and seeing how other people live, and understanding that we're all just human beings trying to get through the end of the day, essentially.
Yeah.
I think that's important, and it's not that there's not going to be disagreements, but the standard reactionary. If you're a Republican or a Democrat or whatever, if you're not what I am, then you're bad, and that's just so much of the dialogue here in the U.S. anyway. That how can we solve any problems with that mindset?
Yeah.
I think people just travel. Really,
yes. Yeah. Absolutely. But so on a little bit of the same, then I would say that one of my biggest challenges with this podcast and with everything like writing and communicating is that it's really hard to reach. I feel that I'm preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
So, and I guess you have some of the same problem with everything writing and podcasting. How do we find and connect with those people who are not already in the choir?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because that's something I've been fighting with my whole career doing this. You have the people that early on, the trolls, I would try to engage with them, and I finally learned kind of the hard way. So that's pointless. You're not going to get those people. And there's preaching to the choir, and you go, well, yeah. So what am I really doing here? For me, it's maybe not always just focusing on, for instance, just climate change. Just like my podcast, my first episode was I was relating a health issue I had last year and relating that to solastalgia and the idea of our connection to nature. Just maybe kind of changing the focus a little bit to get people to think about the connection. Climate change, like I said before, climate change is a symptom of a much larger issue. And so if we can maybe think of other ways to approach this idea of what can we do about climate change without talking about climate change, if that makes sense. The last episode I did, which I don't know if it's a global thing, but it's at least the United States, is Mental Health Month.
I heard it. Yes, it is. It's a global thing.
So, they had really nothing to do with climate change. I think I mentioned the word, but it was about, for me personally, one of the things that helped me when I was having issues a decade ago was just connection with nature. And I think that's a big part of it, is just go for a walk and listen to the birds, just kind of get out of our modern world as much as we can. It's almost impossible, but to appreciate nature and appreciate what we might lose if we destroy nature, as opposed to climate change, because that word turns so many people off.
Yeah.
So finding other ways to talk about things that impact climate without saying climate.
Yes, I agree. I had the same issue actually with the word sustainability. At the point, I got so tired of the word, and I thought, that is me. And how I felt it was just kind of seen as this hassle that companies, for instance, we have to think about sustainability. So I started talking more about the future in a way. Like that, the name of my podcast, Stories for the Future. I don't mention climate, not sustainability, just because I feel that the communication around this must have been not so good since we haven't gotten further. So maybe it's something that we need to start doing or stop doing. I'm not sure. What do you think?
Yeah, taking the word sustainability as an example, I agree. I try to avoid that word now because it's become, it's kind of become meaningless in a way. I think that's our job as communicators, is to really, and it's our challenge, and it's a big challenge to find ways to cut through the noise, cut through the oft used phrases that they become meaningless, and it's an ongoing effort for me. I'm just still learning after even 20 years of doing it. I come up thinking that, first off, if I talk about climate change, I'm going to change people's minds, and it's not that easy. It doesn't work that way.
No.
So in a way, you have to find out where people are and try to get to that spot where you can get them to listen to you. I listen to myself talk and I go, well, yeah, okay, well, how do you do that? But it's just, you try different things. For me anyway, you try different things. Like with my podcast, I for years and years and years, I was just writing articles. And then I finally realized, well, people aren't reading. Like, find people where they are. What are people doing? They're listening to podcasts. So, and being an audio engineer, I don't know why it took me so long, because I really enjoy it. And the other thing for me with the podcast is that I can employ, you've heard my podcast, I try to use sound effects.
Yes.
And for me, I think sound is a powerful tool to open people's minds. Music, there's a physiological impact that has, as opposed to just talking at people. They don't read, they don't listen. So how do you get to people? But I do think finding out where people are. It's not that I still write. I'm a writer and I still do the blog, and people do read, but you also have to realize that the audience has kind of moved on a little bit, and if you can get in front of them and then maybe have a little bit of music and to calm them down, and then you just kind of come in with an idea. And I think there's a time when you need to be forceful, but there's also a time when you just need to kind of maybe just get people to relax a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think people are just so anxious and upset and uncertain that the world. I mean, I can tell from where I sit, I have no idea. I wake up every morning and go, okay, now what? Now what headline are we going to see now? What's he done this time?
Yes, I know.
So I think it's really important, as apropos of my last podcast about mental health, I think that's an important aspect too, is to help people maintain a sense of balance.
Yes.
And in the process, I'm doing that for myself as well.
Definitely. I had David Beckemeyer from the podcast Outrage Overload he's from California as well. And he talked about this, like all the things that you should do to like take care of your health, get out in nature, connect with people in different ways. So many great points he had as well. So yes, the same as you're saying.
Yeah,
absolutely, I agree. Okay, so we have to wrap up. I could talk forever, I think, about this.
Very interesting conversation. Yeah.
Very interesting. So many topics. Maybe you have to come back later.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yes, but you have so many fantastic, like as I said, you're right. You have your podcast. So how do people find that? Where is the easiest place to find you?
You can find me at globalwarmingisreal.com, and you'll see my writing and my colleagues' writings there, and there's also a link to the podcast as well.
Yes, so you have a Substack as well, right?
I do have a Substack. It's just getting underway, but I do have a Substack.
I'm following you there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
I think Substack is a great place because it's a lot of good writers.
Yeah. There. I'm really getting into the Substack too. I got the podcast, and I want to get the Substack going as well. Because there's a lot of good information there.
It is.
Yeah.
That is actually where I follow the news from the US these days, like independent.
Yeah, that's good. I think that. That's one maybe positive thing that's coming out of this. There's a lot of good independent journalists.
Yes.
Their voices are becoming heard at a very important time right now.
It is. So hopefully they won't be shut down by the...
Yeah.
So, yeah.
One day at a time, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Tom. I get very uplifted, actually, knowing that people like you are out there and doing the great work. So thank you for that.
And you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And best of luck with everything that you do. And hopefully you can come back later.
Okay.
That would be
I'd love to. I'd love to do that.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I'm really grateful to Tom for sharing his time, his wisdom, and his perspectives on these topics, which are so important and so relevant. His decades of work as a communicator and independent journalist remind us of just how vital it is to keep climate science and the truth itself alive in the public conversation. If you want to explore more of Tom's work, you can find him at globalwarmingisreal.com. I will, of course, add it in the show notes, and also his Substack. I will add that as well. And if you want to know more about my work or read things that I write about regarding the future of work, energy, or other topics related to the future, you can find more on my Substack, viklavenes.substack.com. And also go to my webpage, storiesforthefuture.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I will be back next week. See you then.